Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he finished checking the last fuel line on the cargo ship Horizon's Edge. The work was hard and dirty, but someone had to do it. He was the maintenance engineer on this old ship, and keeping it running was his job. The ship carried supplies between Earth and the outer colonies. A boring but important job that paid well enough. The ship's captain, Dan Walsh, was a good man but followed the rules strictly. The crew was small, just 12 people including Jake. They all knew each other well after working together for 3 years. Jake got along with everyone, especially Dr. Helen Carter, who ran the small medical bay. She was smart and kind, always ready to help when someone got hurt. It was a Tuesday morning when everything changed. Jake was in the engine room, fixing a broken pipe, when the ship's alarm started ringing. The sound meant only one thing. They had found something in space that needed attention. Jake dropped his tools and ran to the main deck. Ken Walsh stood at the viewing window, looking out at something floating in the dark. "What is it, Captain?" Jake asked, trying to see what had caught their attention. "It looks like an escape pod," Walsh said, his voice serious, "but it's not human design. The shape is all wrong, and look at those markings on the side." Jake pressed his face against the glass. The pod was small, maybe big enough for one person. It was silver with blue lines that seemed to glow softly. The shape was smooth and curved, nothing like the square, practical pods that humans used. "Is anyone inside?" he asked. "Scanner shows one life form," said Lisa Park, the ship's communications officer. "But the readings are strange. The heart rate is too slow, and the body temperature is lower than human normal." Captain Walsh rubbed his chin, thinking hard. "Company rules say we don't pick up alien craft. Too dangerous. We should report it to the authorities and keep moving." Jake felt his stomach drop. "But Captain, if someone is dying in there, we can't just leave them. What if it was one of us in that pod?" "The rules exist for good reasons, Jake. We don't know what diseases they might carry or if they're hostile. Our job is to deliver cargo, not play rescue team." Dr. Carter stepped forward. "I can run medical scans from here. If the being is dying, we might be able to help without putting the crew in danger." Jake looked at the pod again. It was drifting slowly, and he could see scorch marks on one side. Someone had been in a fight and barely escaped. "Captain, I know the rules, but this is about doing what's right. If we save someone today, maybe someone will save us tomorrow." The captain was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he sighed. "Fine, but we do this carefully. Full contamination procedures. If there's any sign of danger, we blow the pod back into space." It took 2 hours to bring the pod into the cargo bay. Jake put on a protective suit and went to open it. His hands shook as he worked on the strange lock mechanism. When the pod finally opened with a soft hiss, Jake's breath caught in his throat. Inside was a woman, but not human. Her skin was pale blue, and thin crystal lines ran down her arms like veins. Her hair was silver white and seemed to move even, though there was no wind. She was unconscious, and her breathing was very shallow. Blood that looked more purple than red stained her strange clothing. "She's badly hurt," Dr. Carter said through the radio. "Bring her to the medical bay, but keep the suit on." Jake carefully lifted the alien woman. She was lighter than he expected, and her skin felt warm despite its blue color. He carried her through the ship's corridors, ignoring the stares of the other crew members. Some looked curious, others scared. In the medical bay, Dr. Carter worked quickly. Her anatomy is similar to human, but different enough to be challenging. Heart rate is slow, but that might be normal for her species. She's lost a lot of blood, and there are burns on her left side. Jake watched the doctor work. "Will she live?" "I don't know. I'm doing my best, but I don't understand her biology. She needs some kind of mineral supplement, but I don't know what kind." For the next 3 days, Jake spent every free moment in the medical bay. He brought extra food and water, thinking she might need more than human amounts. He even gave up his own water rations when they discovered her species needed more hydration to heal. The other crew members had mixed feelings about their alien guest. Some, like Lisa Park, were fascinated and wanted to learn about her. Others Like engineer Tom Baker thought they should have left her in space. She's not our problem, Tom said during dinner. We're risking all our lives for a stranger. She's not a stranger, Jake replied. She's someone who needed help. That's enough for me. Captain Walsh supported Jake's decision but worried about company reaction. When we get to the next station, there will be questions. The company won't like that we broke protocol. On the fourth day, the alien woman opened her eyes. They were large and golden, with no visible pupils. She tried to sit up but was too weak. Dr. Carter was called immediately. Easy, the doctor said gently. You're safe now. You're on a human ship. The woman looked around the room, taking in the strange surroundings. Her eyes stopped on Jake, who was standing near the door. She tried to speak, but only strange musical sounds came out. We can't understand you, Jake said, moving closer. But you're going to be okay. We're taking care of you. The woman seemed to understand his tone, if not his words. She reached out with one thin hand, and Jake took it without thinking. Her skin was soft and warm, and the crystal lines on her arm pulsed with gentle light. Over the next few days, the woman grew stronger. She couldn't speak English, but she was clearly intelligent. She watched everything with curious eyes and tried to communicate with gestures. Jake brought her books with pictures, and she seemed to understand them quickly. Dr. Carter was amazed by how fast she healed. Her body repairs itself much faster than human tissue. Those crystal lines seem to be part of her circulatory system, and they're glowing brighter as she gets better. Jake worked double shifts to make up for the time he spent with their guest. He brought her food, water, and even some of his personal books. The woman seemed grateful for everything, especially Jake's kindness. On the seventh day, they received a message from an unknown ship. The transmission was in the same musical language the woman spoke. When she heard it, she became very excited. I think her people found us, Captain Walsh said. They're asking for permission to come aboard. The rescue ship was beautiful, made of the same silver material as the escape pod, but much larger. 3 beings came aboard, all similar to the woman but wearing formal clothing. They spoke with their rescued friend for a long time before leaving. The woman approached Jake. She looked into his eyes and spoke in her musical language. Then she pressed her palm against his forehead. Jake felt a warm, tingling sensation that lasted for several seconds. Thank you, she said in clear English, the only human words she had learned. Then she was gone, leaving Jake with a small scar on his forehead and a memory he would carry forever. The company was angry about the rescue, but the bad publicity of abandoning someone in space would have been worse. Jake kept his job, but he never forgot the alien woman or the way she had looked at him with such gratitude. 5 years later, he would learn that gratitude was about to change his life in ways he never imagined. Jake Morrison closed his laptop and stretched his arms above his head. Another long day of work was finally over. He looked out the window of his small office at the red landscape of Mars. The 2 suns were setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple that still amazed him even after 3 years of living here. He worked as a structural engineer for the Martian Colony Development Project in New Phoenix, the largest human settlement on Mars. His job was to design and check the safety of new buildings as the colony grew bigger each month. It was important work, but not very exciting. Most days he spent hours looking at computer screens, making sure walls were strong enough and air systems worked properly. The colony had grown from 5,000 people when Jake first arrived to almost 15,000 now. New families came on ships from Earth every few months, looking for a better life or just adventure. Jake helped design the homes where they would live, the schools where their children would learn, and the shops where they would buy food and clothes. Jake picked up his jacket and headed for the door. The walk home took him through the main street of New Phoenix, where people were finishing their day. Children played in the small park while their parents talked. Shopkeepers were closing their stores. Everything looked normal and peaceful. His apartment was in a building he had helped design 2 years ago. It was small but comfortable, with a living room, bedroom, kitchen, and bathroom. The best part was the big window that looked out over the Martian landscape. Jake shared the space with his girlfriend Lisa Chang and their dog Rusty. Lisa worked as a teacher at the colony school. She was smart and funny, with short black hair and bright eyes that always seemed to be smiling. Jake had met her on his first week on Mars when he was lost, and she gave him directions to the grocery store. They had been together for 2.5 years now, and Jake was thinking about asking her to marry him. Rusty was a golden retriever they had adopted from the animal shelter. The dog had come to Mars as a puppy with a family that later moved. Back to Earth, he was friendly and energetic, always happy to see Jake come home from work. "I'm home," Jake called as he opened the door. Rusty ran to greet him, tail wagging and tongue hanging out. Lisa was in the kitchen making dinner. "How was work?" she asked, giving Jake a kiss on the cheek. "Same as always." "Check some building plans, attended a meeting about the new shopping center, fixed some problems with the water treatment plant design." "Nothing too exciting," Lisa smiled. "That's good. Exciting usually means something went wrong." They ate dinner together, talking about their days. Lisa told him about her students, a group of 8- and 9-year-olds who were learning about Earth history. "They find it hard to believe that Earth has so much water," she said. "To them, water is something precious that comes from machines." After dinner, they walked Rusty around the colony. The streets were lit by tall lamps that made everything look yellow and warm. Other people were out walking too, and Jake nodded to neighbors he knew. This was his life now, simple, quiet, and happy. Sometimes Jake thought about his old life on the cargo ships. He remembered the excitement of seeing new places and meeting different people. But he also remembered the loneliness of being away from Earth for months at a time, sleeping in a small bunk and eating the same food every day. The alien woman he had saved 5 years ago was now just a story he told at parties. People were always interested to hear about his encounter with a real alien. Most humans had never seen beings from other worlds, even though everyone knew they existed. Trade with alien species happened at big space stations far from Earth and Mars, handled by special government people. Jake still had the small scar on his forehead where the alien woman had touched him. It had never faded completely, and sometimes Lisa would trace it with her finger when they were lying in bed. "Your alien kiss," she would call it, teasing him gently. Weekend life was Jake's favorite time. He and Lisa would take Rusty on hikes through the Martian canyons, amazing rock formations that stretched for miles. The low gravity made walking easier, and they could jump higher than on Earth. Sometimes they would pack a lunch and spend the whole day exploring. They also enjoyed movie nights, watching old films from Earth on their wall screen. Lisa liked romantic comedies, while Jake preferred action adventures. They took turns picking what to watch, though they both agreed that the best part was just being together. Jake talked to his parents on Earth once a week through video calls. The time delay made conversations difficult, but he enjoyed seeing their faces and hearing about life in Ohio. His mother always asked when he was coming home to visit, and his father wanted to know about his work. They were proud of him, but worried about him being so far away. The colony had its own small problems. Sometimes the air recycling system needed repairs, or the water purification plant had issues. There were occasional arguments between different groups of people, usually about how to spend money or what new buildings to construct. But overall, life was good. Jake had made friends with his coworkers, especially Ryan Clark, another engineer, who had come to Mars around the same time. They often ate lunch together, and sometimes went to the colony's bar after work. Ryan was single and always complaining about the lack of dating opportunities in such a small community. "You're lucky you found Lisa," Ryan would say. "The rest of us have to hope someone interesting comes on the next ship from Earth." Lisa had friends too, mostly other teachers and some women who worked in the colony administration. They had a book club that met every other week, and sometimes they organized social events like dances or picnic days. The work week always started the same way. Jake would get up early, shower, eat breakfast with Lisa, and walk to his office. The colony administration building was a large structure in the center of New Phoenix, with offices for all the different departments that kept the colony running. Jake's office was on the 3rd floor, with a view of the main street. He shared the space with two other engineers, Carol Price and Ben Miller. Carol was in her 50s and had been working on Mars colonies for over 20 years. Ben was young and fresh from engineering school on Earth, full of new ideas and energy. Their boss was Kevin Brooks, the colony administrator. He was a serious man who took his job very seriously. Kevin had to make sure that everything in the colony worked properly and that people were happy and safe. He often asked Jake to check building plans or investigate problems with the colony's infrastructure. Tuesday morning started like any other. Jake woke up, had breakfast with Lisa, and walked to work. The weather was clear, which on Mars meant no dust storms. He was looking forward to a quiet day of checking the plans for a new residential building, but when Jake arrived at the colony administration building, he saw something that made him stop walking. In the visitor parking area, there was a spacecraft he had never seen before. It was beautiful, with smooth curves and no visible seams. The hull seemed to change color as he looked at it, shifting from silver to blue to green. Jake had seen many human spacecraft, but this was different. This was definitely not human technology. His heart started beating faster as he remembered another alien craft he had seen 5 years ago. As he watched, figures in environmental suits began to emerge from the ship. Even through their suits, Jake could see the distinctive crystal markings on their arms. His hand moved unconsciously to touch the scar on his forehead. After 5 years of ordinary life, it seemed that his past was about to catch up with him. Jake stood frozen on the sidewalk, staring at the alien spacecraft. His heart was beating so fast he could hear it in his ears. The ship was unlike anything he had ever seen before. It was about the size of a small building, but it seemed to float just above the ground without making any sound. Other people were gathering around, pointing and talking in excited voices. Children pressed their faces against windows while their parents called them back. The colony security guards were running toward the ship, but they looked confused and unsure about what to do. Jake forced himself to walk toward the administration building. As he got closer, he could see the figures in environmental suits more clearly. There were 5 of them, all tall and graceful in their movements. Their suits were made of the same material as the ship, smooth and shimmering. Kevin Brooks, the colony administrator, was already there talking to the visitors. He looked nervous and kept wiping sweat from his face. Jake had never seen his boss so worried before. Dr. Helen Carter was there too, which surprised Jake. He had not seen her since his cargo ship days, but somehow she had ended up on Mars. "Jake!" Dr. Carter called when she saw him. "Thank goodness you're here. These visitors are asking for you specifically." Jake's mouth went dry. "They're asking for me?" "Yes, they keep saying your name. Well, they're trying to say it. It sounds like Jake Morrison in their language." One of the suited figures stepped forward. Even through the helmet, Jake could see the golden eyes and crystal markings he remembered from 5 years ago. The alien woman he had saved was standing right in front of him. She reached up and touched something on her helmet. The front part became transparent, and Jake could see her face clearly. She looked older now, and the crystal lines on her visible skin were brighter and more complex. She was more beautiful than he remembered. "Jake Morrison," she said in perfect English, her voice carrying a musical quality. "I have been looking for you for a long time." I remember you," Jake stammered, "from the cargo ship." "You were hurt." The alien woman smiled, and Jake felt the same warmth he had felt 5 years ago. "My name is Zareth of the Veltar people. You saved my life, Jake Morrison. I have come to repay that debt." Kevin Brooks stepped forward. "Excuse me, but we need to follow proper procedures here. All alien contact must go through official channels." Zareth looked at Kevin with her golden eyes. "I am here on official business, Administrator Brooks. I am now a council member of the Veltar Exploration Division. I speak for my people in matters of interstellar relations." She pulled out a small device that projected images in the air. Jake saw official documents with alien writing and symbols he didn't understand. "These are my credentials. I have the authority to make agreements with human colonies." Dr. Carter moved closer to Jake. "Jake, this is incredible. The Veltar are one of the most advanced species in this part of the galaxy. They rarely make contact with humans. That is changing, Zareth said. Thanks to what I learned from humans during my recovery. Jake Morrison showed me that humans are worthy of friendship. And trust? Jake felt overwhelmed. I just did what anyone would do. You were hurt and needed help. No, Zareth said firmly. Not anyone would do what you did. You gave up your food, your water, your rest. You sat with me when I was afraid. You treated me like a person, not a strange creature. More people were gathering around them. Jake could see Lisa pushing through the crowd, her face full of worry and confusion. When she reached him, she grabbed his arm. Jake, what's going on? Who are these people? Lisa, this is Zareth. She's the alien woman I told you about. The one I helped save 5 years ago. Lisa's eyes went wide. She looked at Zareth with a mixture of fear and amazement. You're real. I mean, of course you're real, but seeing you here. Zareth bowed slightly to Lisa. You must be Jake's mate. He is fortunate to have someone who cares for him so deeply. We should move this conversation inside, Kevin Brooks said. Too many people are watching. They went into the administration building, followed by Zareth and 2 of her companions. The main conference room was quickly prepared with extra chairs and recording equipment. Jake sat between Lisa and Dr. Carter still. Trying to understand what was happening, Zareth removed her environmental suit completely, revealing her full appearance. She was tall and elegant, wearing robes that seemed to be made of liquid metal. The crystal lines on her arms and face pulsed with soft light. Her hair was longer now, flowing down her back like silver water. Jake Morrison, she began, 5 years ago you performed a ritual of kindness that created a life debt between us. In Veltar culture, such debts must be repaid with something of equal value. I don't understand, Jake said. I just helped someone who was hurt. I didn't expect anything in return. That is exactly why the debt exists, Zareth explained. You helped without expecting reward. Now I must give you something that will help you as much as you helped me. She activated another device and new images appeared in the air. Jake saw star maps and pictures of planets he didn't recognize. There were charts full of numbers and symbols. What am I looking at? Kevin Brooks asked. The location of a resource cache that could change the future of human colonies, Zareth said. Rare elements that your people need for advanced technology. Enough to power your colonies for centuries. Dr. Carter leaned forward. Where did these resources come from? An ancient civilization that no longer exists. They left behind technology and materials in hidden locations throughout the galaxy. The Veltar discovered this cache 3 years ago, but we cannot use these particular resources. Our biology is different. Jake stared at the images. Why are you giving this to us? It must be worth a fortune. Because you saved my life, and because humans deserve a chance to grow and explore the galaxy, but there is a problem. The images change, showing ships Jake didn't recognize. They were dark and angular, with weapon systems clearly visible. The Kethmer Empire, Zareth said. They are military people who believe that might makes right. They have been slowly expanding toward human territory. The Veltar have been watching them for years. Are they hostile? Kevin asked. They are not evil, but they are aggressive. They take what they want and make others serve them. If they reach human colonies before you can defend yourselves, your people will become their subjects. Lisa squeezed Jake's hand. How does this resource cache help us? The ancient technology includes defensive systems, Zareth explained. Shield generators, weapon platforms, ships that can protect your colonies. But the cache is located in space claimed by the Kethmer. Getting there will be dangerous. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. You want us to go into enemy territory? I want you to come with me, Jake Morrison. As a human representative, you would have the right to claim the resources for your people. The Veltar will provide transportation and protection, but a human must be present to make the claim legal under galactic law. The room was quiet for a long moment. Jake could hear his own heartbeat and the soft hum of the air recycling system. Lisa was looking at him with worry in her eyes. Jake, she said quietly, this sounds incredibly dangerous. You could be killed. But if I don't go, the colony might not survive when the Kethmer arrive, Jake replied. And if this technology is as valuable as Zareth says, it could help all human colonies. Kevin Brooks cleared his throat. This is a decision that affects the entire colony. We need to discuss it with the council. There is no time for long discussions, Zareth said. The Kethmer are already moving toward the cache location. We must leave within 3 days or the opportunity will be lost forever. Jake looked around the room at the faces of the people he cared about. Dr. Carter looked excited by the possibility of adventure. Kevin Brooks looked worried about the responsibility. Lisa looked scared about losing him. I need time to think, Jake said finally. Zareth nodded. Of course. But Jake Morrison, remember that some chances come only once in a lifetime. This is your chance to repay the kindness you showed me by showing kindness to all of humanity. As they left the conference room, Jake realized that his quiet life on Mars was about to end. The question was whether he had the courage to embrace the adventure that awaited him among the stars. Jake couldn't sleep that night. He lay in bed next to Lisa, staring at the ceiling and thinking about Zareth's offer. The numbers on the clock seemed to move too slowly, each minute feeling like an hour. Lisa was awake too, but they didn't talk. Both of them knew what the other was thinking. Finally, as the first light of dawn began to show through their window, Lisa spoke. You're going to do it, aren't you? Jake turned to look at her. Her eyes were red from crying, but her voice was steady. I don't know. I keep thinking about all the people in the colony. What if the Kethmer really do come? What if we could have stopped them but didn't try? And what if you die out there? Lisa asked. What if I never see you again? What if this is all a trick or a mistake? Jake reached out and took her hand. Zareth wouldn't lie to me. She's risking her own life to help humans. That has to mean something. Lisa was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I know you, Jake Morrison. You're going to go because you can't live with yourself if you don't. You saved that alien woman 5 years ago because it was the right thing to do. Now you're going to risk everything again because you think it's right? I'm sorry, Jake said. I know this isn't fair to you. No, it's not fair, Lisa agreed. But it's who you are. It's one of the reasons I love you. They got up and had breakfast together, but neither of them ate much. Jake called his boss and told him he might need to take some time off. He didn't explain why, but Kevin Brooks already knew what was happening at 9 o'clock. Jake went to the administration building. The alien ship was still there, and people were still gathering to look at it. Some children had drawn pictures of it and left them on the ground nearby. The security guards were keeping everyone at a safe distance. Inside, Jake found Dr. Carter talking excitedly with Zareth. The medical possibilities alone are incredible, the doctor was saying. If we could study Veltar healing techniques, we could save so many lives. Dr. Carter wants to come with us, Zareth told Jake. Her medical knowledge could be very useful. Jake was surprised. Helen, are you sure? This could be extremely dangerous, I'm sure, she said. I've been treating sick people for 30 years. Maybe it's time I did something to prevent sickness instead of just curing it. Kevin Brooks arrived with several other colony officials. They all looked serious and worried. We've been discussing your situation all night, Kevin said. The Colony Council has voted to support your mission, but we want you to know that we can't order you to go. This has to be your choice. What did the council decide? Jake asked. If you bring back these resources, the colony will share them with other human settlements. We won't keep them all for ourselves. The technology could help establish defenses for Earth, Luna, and all the other colonies. Jake felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. What if I make the wrong decision? What if people die because of what I choose? People might die no matter what you choose, Kevin said gently. But at least this way, we have a chance. To protect ourselves, Zareth stepped forward. Jake Morrison, I know this is difficult for you, but I have something that might help you decide. She pulled out a small crystal device and held it up to the light. Inside, Jake could see swirling patterns of energy. This is a memory crystal. It contains records of what the Kethmer have done to other species. Perhaps seeing the truth will help you understand what is at stake. Jake took the crystal. It felt warm in his hands, and the patterns inside seemed to respond to his touch. How do I use it? Simply hold it and focus your thoughts? The crystal will show you what you need to see. Jake closed his eyes and concentrated. Suddenly, images flooded his mind. He saw peaceful planets with cities full of happy people. Then he saw the Kethmer ships arriving, dark and menacing against the stars. The images showed battles, destruction, and finally surrender, but the worst part was what happened after the surrender. The Kethmer didn't kill the people they conquered. Instead, they made them work as slaves, building ships and weapons for the Empire. Children were taken from their parents and trained to be soldiers. Entire civilizations were forced to give up their culture and history. Jake opened his eyes, feeling sick. They don't just conquer. They destroy everything that makes people who they are. Yes, Zareth said sadly. The Kethmer believe that all species should serve their empire. They see kindness as weakness and independence as rebellion. Then, we have to try to stop them, Jake said. I can't let that happen to Earth or any human colony. Lisa had been waiting outside the building. When Jake told her about his decision, she cried for a few minutes. Then she wiped her eyes and looked at him with determination. If you're going to do this, then I'm going to help you get ready, she said. You'll need supplies, and someone needs to take care of Rusty while you're gone. They spent the next day preparing. Jake packed clothes, tools, and personal items. Lisa made him promise to call her whenever he could. They gave Rusty to their neighbor, who promised to take good care of him. The hardest part was saying goodbye to his parents. The video call to Earth was difficult because of the time delay, but Jake managed to explain what he was doing. His mother cried, and his father looked proud and worried at the same time. You be careful out there, son, his father said. And remember that we love you. On the morning of departure, Jake stood at the door of his apartment, looking around at the life he was leaving behind. Everything looked the same, but he knew it would never be the same for him again. Lisa walked with him to the alien ship. The singing crystal was even more beautiful up close, with patterns of light flowing across its surface like water. The airlock opened silently, and Jake could see the interior was filled with soft, blue light. I'll come back, Jake promised. Lisa, I don't know when, but I'll come back. You better, she said, kissing him one last time. I'll be waiting for you. Jake walked up the ramp into the ship. The interior was unlike anything he had ever seen. The walls curved smoothly, and there were no sharp corners anywhere. Controls and displays were built into the surfaces, glowing softly when touched. Dr. Carter was already aboard, looking around in amazement. This is incredible, she said. The technology is so advanced I can barely understand it. Zareth led them to their quarters. Jake's room was small but comfortable, with a bed, chair, and viewing window. The journey will take 4 days, she explained. We must travel carefully to avoid Kethmer patrols. As the ship lifted off from Mars, Jake looked down at the colony growing smaller below. He could see the building where he had worked, the apartment where he had lived, and the streets where he had walked with Lisa and Rusty. It all looked so peaceful and safe from up here. Having second thoughts? Dr. Carter asked, joining him at the window. No, Jake said. I'm scared, but I'm not having second thoughts. This is something I have to do. The ship turned toward the stars, and Mars disappeared behind them. Jake was now traveling farther from home than he had ever been before, heading toward a danger he could barely imagine. But he was also carrying the hopes of everyone he cared about, and the possibility of securing a future for all of humanity. The journey to change the fate of the human race had begun. The 4th day of their journey was almost over when Zareth's ship reached the ancient cache location. Jake had spent the time learning about Veltar technology and practicing with the translation devices. Dr. Carter had been fascinated by everything, asking endless questions about alien medicine and biology. Jake was in the ship's observation deck when the alarms started ringing. Red lights flashed throughout the ship, and he could hear Zareth's voice speaking rapidly in her own language over the communication system. What's happening? Dr. Carter asked, running into the room. Zaret H appeared a moment later, her face serious. Kethmore ships? 3 of them, moving toward the cache location. They arrived faster than we expected. Jake felt his stomach drop. Are we too late? Not yet, but we have very little time. The cache is located inside that asteroid field. She pointed to the viewing screen where Jake could see hundreds of floating rocks spinning slowly in space. The ancient technology is hidden inside the largest asteroid? What about the Kethmore ships? Dr. Carter asked. They haven't seen us yet, but they will soon. Our ship is fast, but theirs are built for war. If they catch us, we won't be able to fight them. Jake stared at the screen. The 3 Kethmore ships looked like metal sharks, dark and dangerous. Each one was twice the size of Zareth's ship. What do we do? We have 2 choices, Zareth said. We can turn around and go home safely, or we can try to reach the cache before they find it. If we're caught, they will either destroy us or take us prisoner. What happens if they get the cache first? Jake asked. They will use the ancient weapons to attack human colonies. With that technology, they could conquer Earth itself within a year. Jake closed his eyes and thought about Lisa, his parents, and all the people back on Mars. He thought about the memory crystal and what he had seen the Kethmore do to other species. We have to try. Too many people are counting on us. Zareth nodded. I hoped you would say that. Hold on, everyone. This is going to be a rough ride. The ship suddenly accelerated, pressing Jake back into his seat. Through the viewing screen, he watched the asteroid field grow larger as they approached. The rocks were huge, some as big as mountains, spinning and tumbling in the darkness. The cache is in the center of the field, Zareth explained while flying between the asteroids. The ancient people chose this location because it's very difficult to reach. Ships can easily be damaged by the moving rocks. Jake watched in amazement as Zareth piloted the ship through the dangerous field. She moved smoothly between the spinning asteroids, sometimes with only meters to spare. Her hands danced over the controls like she was playing music. After 20 minutes of careful flying, they reached the center of the field. The largest asteroid was there, dark and covered with strange markings. It was perfectly round, which Jake realized was not natural. That's not a real asteroid, he said. No, Zareth agreed. It's an artificial structure made to look like an asteroid. Very clever. As they approached, a section of the structure opened, revealing a docking bay inside. The ship slipped through the opening, and Jake found himself inside a vast hollow space. Lights began to turn on automatically, showing walls covered with symbols and patterns. The ancient people called themselves the Guardians, Zareth explained as they left the ship. They built these caches thousands of years ago. Before they disappeared, no one knows what happened to them. The inside of the structure was like a museum. Jake saw weapons that looked like they were made of pure energy, shields that glowed with inner light, and machines whose purpose he couldn't even guess. Everything was perfectly preserved, as if the Guardians had just left. How do we activate any of this? Dr. Carter asked, looking around in wonder. The control center is deeper inside, Zareth said. But first, Jake must prove that humans have the right to claim this technology. They walked through long corridors filled with amazing devices. Finally, they reached a large room with a raised platform in the center. On the platform was a crystal formation that looked similar to the one Zareth had used to show Jake the memory of the Kethmore. Place your hand on the crystal, Zareth instructed. It will read your thoughts and intentions. If it judges humans worthy, the cache will accept your claim. Jake approached the crystal nervously. It was beautiful, glowing with soft rainbow colors. When he placed his hand on its surface, warmth spread up his arm. Suddenly, Jake's mind was filled with voices and images. He saw the Guardians, tall beings with kind faces and gentle eyes. They spoke to him without words, asking about humanity's intentions. Jake tried to project his thoughts clearly. He showed them images of human colonies, families working together, children playing and learning. He showed them his own memories of helping Zareth, of people caring for each other, of humans exploring space not to conquer but to grow and learn. The voices seemed pleased. They showed him images of the technology in the cache and how it could be used to protect rather than attack. They made him understand that the Guardians had built these caches hoping that someday worthy species would find them and use them wisely. When Jake removed his hand from the crystal, the entire room was glowing. Lights were turning on throughout the structure, and he could hear machines starting up. "It worked," Zareth said, sounding amazed. "The Guardians have accepted your claim. The cache is now under human protection." "Ake, look at this," Dr. Carter called from across the room. She was standing in front of a wall covered with symbols that were now glowing. "I think these are instructions." But before they could study the instructions, new alarms started ringing. The sound was different from before, deeper and more urgent. "The Kethmer have found us," Zareth said, checking a portable device. "They're entering the asteroid field now." Jake felt panic rising in his chest. "How long before they get here?" "Maybe 30 minutes if they're careful. Less if they're willing to risk damage to their ships." "That's not enough time to figure out how all this technology works," Dr. Carter said. Jake stared at the glowing symbols on the wall. Then he had an idea. "What if we don't need to figure it out? What if we just take what we can carry and come back later with more people?" "The Kethmer won't let us come back," Zareth said. "If we leave now, they'll claim the cache for themselves. Then we need to find a way to make them leave us alone." Jake walked back to the crystal and placed his hand on it again. This time, he asked the Guardians a different question. Images flooded his mind, showing him something he hadn't expected. The cache wasn't just a storage place for weapons and technology. It was also a communication device, connected to other caches throughout the galaxy. The Guardians had built a network that could unite different species in peace. When Jake opened his eyes, he was smiling. "I have an idea, but I'm going to need both of you to trust me completely." 20 minutes later, the first Kethmer ship reached the Guardian structure. The ship's commander, General Foxfer, was expecting to find an empty ancient ruin. Instead, he found 3 ships waiting for him, Zareth S. Veltar vessel, and 2 other ships that had arrived during the past few minutes. Jake, Zareth, and Dr. Carter stood on the docking platform as the Kethmer shuttle landed. General Foxfer emerged with 6 armed soldiers. He was tall and powerful, with dark skin marked by ritual scars and eyes that seemed to look right through people. "You will surrender this facility immediately," the general announced. "By right of superior force, the Kethmer Empire claims all Guardian technology." "Actually," Jake said, stepping forward, "I have a better idea." The general looked at Jake with surprise and contempt. "A human dares to negotiate with the Kethmer Empire?" "I'm not here to negotiate," Jake said calmly. "I'm here to make you an offer that will benefit everyone." For the next hour, Jake explained his proposal. Using the Guardian communication network, the 3 species could work together to find and protect the remaining caches throughout the galaxy. Instead of fighting over the technology, they could share it, with each species contributing their own strengths. The Kethmer would provide military protection for the caches. The Veltar would contribute their advanced science and exploration abilities. Humans would offer their gift for bringing different groups together and finding solutions that worked for everyone. General Foxfer listened to the entire proposal in silence. When Jake finished, the general was quiet for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he began to laugh. "This is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard," he said. "The Kethmer Empire does not share. We take what we want." "And how has that worked out for you?" Jake asked. "You control many worlds, but you're always fighting new wars. Your people spend all their time making weapons instead of building better lives. The Guardians left these caches for species that were ready to move beyond endless conflict." Something in Jake's words seemed to reach the general. His expression became thoughtful. "You believe that working together will make us all stronger?" "I know it will. Look at what happened here today. My species couldn't have found this cache without Veltar help, but the Guardians wouldn't have given it to the Veltar alone. They needed to see human intentions. And now you're here, which means we need Kethmer strength to protect what we've found. The general walked over to the guardian crystal and placed his own hand on its surface.